The first drops of sunlight filtered through the thin curtains of the small house, falling softly onto Diep's hands as she carefully folded the freshly washed clothes. Outside, the morning breeze carried the faint smell of rice fields after rain. It was peaceful, the kind of peace that came after storms. James was sitting by the wooden table, sipping his coffee, while baby Nee was trying to braid her doll's hair, her laughter echoing like tiny bells. For months, their lives had been hard but full of quiet joy. James was still working day and night to rebuild his business after losing everything, and Tu Diep had just started her new job at a small local shop. It wasn't much, but to her, it meant hope, her first step toward sharing the weight that James had been carrying alone for so long. That morning, Diep received her first salary. It wasn't a big amount, but as she held the envelope in her hands, she felt her heart swell with pride. She had earned this, not just with effort, but with courage. She didn't tell James about it. Instead, she quietly went to the town market. The air was cool and full of chatter, the sound of vendors calling out prices blending with the aroma of grilled corn and coffee. Diep stopped by a small shop that sold warm clothes. Her eyes lingered on a gray woolen scarf, soft, simple, but somehow it reminded her of James. "He always forgets his coat," she murmured, smiling. Then she turned to another rack and found a tiny pink jacket for Nee. It was fluffy, with two small bare ears on the hood, something that would make the little girl's eyes light up. When Diep returned home, James was fixing a broken chair, his hands rough and marked by hard work. Nee ran to her, clinging to her legs. "Mommy, what did you buy?" the child asked, her voice full of curiosity. Diep knelt down, wrapped the scarf around James's neck, and handed Nee the jacket. "Just something small," she said softly, "to keep my family warm." James looked at her, stunned. For a moment, he couldn't speak. Then, a quiet smile broke through the tiredness on his face, a smile full of gratitude and love. In that moment, the house, though small, felt warmer than ever. Outside, the old clock struck noon, marking not just the passage of time, but a new beginning, one built on kindness, effort, and the tender love that tied the three of them together. It was late afternoon when a familiar sound echoed from the gate, the creak of metal followed by slow footsteps. James looked up from the small garden where he was watering the plants. His heart skipped a beat when he saw Nee's grandmother standing there, her face calm but distant, holding an umbrella even though the sky was clear. For a moment, no one spoke. Memories of the past hung between them like invisible threads. The court days, the tears, the accusations, the pain of separation. James quickly wiped his hands and walked toward her. "Mother," he greeted respectfully, his voice low but steady. Tu Diep appeared behind him, holding Nee's hand. "Grandma," Nee cried, running forward with pure joy. The elderly woman bent down, her stern expression softening as the little girl wrapped her arms around her legs. "You've grown, my dear," she whispered, brushing a stray hair from Nee's forehead. "I've missed you." Inside the house, Diep poured tea while James quietly placed her umbrella to dry. The room was simple but filled with warmth. The faint smell of stew from lunch still lingered, and on the wall hung a hand-drawn picture Nee had made of the three of them, the grandmothers. Eyes fell on it, and she stayed silent for a long time. "I came today," she finally said, her voice trembling, "not to argue, but to see if what I heard was true, that you two have built a home together, that my granddaughter is happy here." Diep lowered her gaze. "We've made mistakes," she admitted softly, "but all we ever wanted was for Nee to have love, from both sides." The old woman studied Diep for a long while. Then she looked at James, his once proud, confident face now lined with humility and devotion. She saw how gently he reached for Nee's hand, how Diep leaned slightly toward him, as if she had found her safe place there. When Nee climbed onto her lap and began showing her the new jacket Diep had bought, the grandmother's eyes filled with tears. "She looks happy," she whispered. "That's all that matters now." The sun dipped lower, casting a golden glow through the window. For the first time in years, the air between them was calm. The grandmother took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly. You've proven something, she said, her tone both firm and tender. Love doesn't need to be spoken loudly. I can see it here. James bowed his head, and Diep pressed her lips together, trying not to cry. Nee giggled and hugged her grandmother's neck. That evening, as the light faded, the elderly woman stood up, her heart lighter than when she came. Before leaving, she turned back at the doorway and said quietly, "Take care of each other. You've earned this peace." And just like that, with one small sentence, forgiveness filled the home. The wounds of the past began to heal, replaced by a gentle, enduring love that no storm could take away. The morning sun streamed through the bamboo blinds, painting soft golden lines across the small living room. Tu Diep was arranging the breakfast table when she heard the sound of footsteps outside. At first, she thought it was the mailman or one of the villagers, but when she opened the door, her heart froze. Standing there was Nee's grandmother, the woman whose face had once been filled with judgment and sorrow. Today, however, her eyes seemed softer, though still shadowed by hesitation. She held a small cloth bag in one hand and looked as if she had rehearsed this visit. Many times in her mind, "Good morning, child," the grandmother said gently. Diep, taken aback, quickly stepped aside. "Grandmother, please, come in." The older woman entered the small home, her gaze wandering around the modest room. It was simple but tidy, the wooden furniture polished to a warm glow, fresh flowers in a chipped vase, and a small bookshelf where Nee's colorful notebooks rested. Everything breathed a quiet, humble happiness. From the kitchen, the smell of warm soy milk and fried eggs filled the air. James came out, surprised to see the guest. "Mother," he greeted with respect, bowing his head slightly. For a moment, silence hung heavy between them. The past still lingered, the misunderstandings, the pain, the distance. But when little Nee ran out from her room, still in her pajamas, that silence broke like sunlight after rain. "Grandma," Nee's cheerful voice echoed through the room. She ran to the old woman and hugged her legs tightly. The grandmother's hands trembled as she touched the child's hair, her eyes moistening. "My dear girl," she murmured, "you've grown so much." Diep's heart softened at that sight. For so long, she had feared this meeting, that the grandmother would come to take Nee away again. But as she watched the older woman's tender expression, a glimmer of hope stirred inside her. They sat down together. Diep poured tea, her hands slightly shaking. "Please, have some tea, grandmother. It's made from lotus flowers, Nee, and I picked near the lake." The grandmother took the cup, sipping slowly. "You take good care of her," she said quietly. "I've been watching from afar. How she smiles when she's with you both. How she skips to school, and how you walk her home every afternoon. I can see the love here, even without words." James bowed his head, his voice calm but full of emotion. "Mother, Nee means everything to us. We may not be perfect, but we'll give her all the love and safety she deserves." The old woman nodded, her eyes glistening. "I can see that now. For a long time, I thought love was about blood and family names. But maybe love is simply about who shows up, who stays, and who cares." There was a long pause. Then she smiled, a small, genuine smile that softened all the lines on her face. "I didn't come to take her away," she said softly. "I came to let her stay." Diep gasped, her hand covering her mouth. James looked up, eyes wide in disbelief. "You mean?" he began. "Yes," the grandmother interrupted gently. "Nee belongs here, with you too. She's happy, and that's all that matters to me now." Diep's tears fell silently. "Thank you, grandmother. Thank you for trusting us." The old woman reached out and held Diep's hand, her touch warm and trembling. "You've done what even I could not. You gave that child a family again." At that moment, Nee climbed onto her grandmother's lap, showing her a small paper heart she had made the night before. "Grandma, look. Mommy Diep helped me cut it." The grandmother smiled, kissing her forehead. "It's beautiful, my dear, just like you." The air in the room grew lighter, as if all the walls that had divided them for years had finally crumbled. For the first time, laughter replaced silence that evening. As James walked the grandmother to the gate, she stopped and turned to him. "Take care of them both," she said. "You've been given a second chance, don't waste it. James nodded firmly. "I won't, Mother. I promise." When she disappeared down the small dirt path, Diep leaned on James's shoulder, whispering, "Did that really happen?" He smiled, brushing away a tear from her cheek. "Yes," he said softly. "She finally believes in us." And as the orange sun sank behind the hills, warmth filled their hearts, the kind that only forgiveness, love, and family could bring. The afternoon sun bathed the small house in a golden glow, soft and peaceful. The air was filled with the laughter of Nee and the faint clatter of dishes from the kitchen. Tu Diep stood by the stove, stirring a pot of soup, while James carefully set the table. The smell of fresh rice and stewed pork with caramel filled the air, the kind of scent that made a house feel like a home. It had been only a few hours since Nee's grandmother made her decision, yet everything felt different. The house seemed brighter, lighter, as if the walls themselves were breathing relief. Tu Diep couldn't stop smiling, even as tears still shimmered in her eyes. "James," she said softly, "I never thought you would change her mind. It feels like a dream." James smiled as he laid down the last pair of chopsticks. "It's not a dream, Diep. You made her believe in us. You showed her what love really means." Just then, there was a gentle knock on the door. Nee ran to open it, and her joyful cry echoed through the house. "Grandma, you came back." Standing there, the grandmother held a basket filled with vegetables, rice cakes, and a small jar of homemade pickles. Her face, though still lined with age, glowed with warmth. "I thought I'd come back and help you to cook," she said, smiling tenderly. Tu Diep quickly went to help her with the basket. "Grandmother, you didn't have to bring anything." "Nonsense," the old woman chuckled. "It's been too long since I cooked a proper meal with family." And so, the kitchen came alive again, laughter mixed with the crackling sound of the pan. The grandmother chopped vegetables while James washed rice, and Tu Diep kneaded dough for dumplings. Little Nee stood on a small stool, stirring the soup with all the seriousness of a young chef. "Be careful, my dear," the grandmother said softly. "Don't let it boil over." "Yes, Grandma," Nee grinned proudly, her small hands gripping the spoon tightly. It was a simple scene, yet it held the beauty of 1,000 forgotten dreams. 3 generations standing together, cooking side by side, healing through warmth and love. When the food was finally ready, they gathered around the wooden table. The dishes were modest: tofu with tomato sauce, steamed vegetables, and the fragrant rice that Diep had grown herself. But to them, it felt like a royal feast. "Let's eat," James said, his voice low but full of gratitude. "Thank you, everyone, for today." As they began to eat, the grandmother looked at Diep and James with quiet admiration. "You know," she said, "I used to think love was something that could be measured by money, by stability, by what you could give. But sitting here, watching you two, I realize it's not about what you have. It's about how you care." Diep looked down, touched. "We don't have much, grandmother, but we do have each other. And that's enough." The grandmother nodded, her eyes glistening. "That's more than enough, my dear." Nee's laughter filled the air again as she fed a spoonful of rice to her grandmother, saying, "Eat. Grandma, eat. This is Mommy Diep's cooking. It's the best." They all laughed, a sound so warm it could melt away years of distance and pain. As the evening deepened, the air outside turned cool, but inside the house, the warmth of family spread like a soft blanket. The grandmother sat quietly, sipping her tea, watching the 2 young people she once doubted, now united, determined, and deeply in love. She thought to herself, perhaps fate was right all along. Maybe this is where Nee truly belongs. Outside, the first stars began to shimmer above the peaceful countryside, and inside, a small family, bound not by blood, but by love, shared a meal that marked the start of something new, something whole. A few weeks later, Tu Diep received her first salary from the small agricultural business she and James had started. Together, it wasn't much, just enough to cover daily needs, but to her, it felt precious. It was her first step toward independence, her first fruit of hard work beside the man she loved. That evening, she quietly left work early, stopped by a local shop, and bought 2 small gifts: a wool scarf for James and a tiny pink jacket for baby Nee. She wrapped them carefully, smiling to herself, imagining their faces. When she returned home, the room was dim, lit only by a soft lamp. James was reading while Neep played with her toys. "What's that, Deep?" he asked. She smiled shyly. "My first salary," she said softly, "and my first gift for our family." James unwrapped the scarf, holding it gently as if it were made of gold. "You shouldn't have," he said, his voice trembling. "But I wanted to," she replied. "You've worked so hard. I just wanted to keep you warm." Then Neep tore open her own gift and squealed with joy. "Pink, Mommy Deep, it's pink," she laughed, running into Deep's arms. James stood there for a moment, watching the two of them. Feeling his heart swell, he pulled them both close, whispering, This is what real success feels like." Outside, the night wind blew softly against the window, but inside, warmth filled every corner of their little home, not from money or luxury, but from love, care, and a shared dream that had finally begun to bloom.